of August 19th, 2024. The time is 7 p.m. Opening prayer. Jamie?
All right, if we can all rise, let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for the ability to come together for this meeting to do the business of our wonderful city, the city of North Canton. Please be here with us tonight and be with those that are not able to join us. Please watch over our city and this great country. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Liam, would you please call the roll?
Member Wire?
Here.
Member Owens?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Stroya?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
7 present.
Okay, moving on to public speaks. Liam, if you would read the preamble.
We actually did not have anybody sign up to speak.
Oh, no one's okay, great. Then don't read it. Okay, at this time, City Council will invite the Directors of Finance to present the 2025 alternative tax budget.
Okay, is this me?
Oh, no.
So the tax budget is something that we start the budget season with for next year. It is the projection of what our 30,000 foot fund by fund revenues and expenses will be. And it is by Ohio Revised Code declares to the county auditor, yes, please collect the taxes that are due to the city of North Canton, and yes, please remit them to the city of North Canton. And that is the purpose of the tax budget. We do have the levies in place that we'll be collecting next year, and I'm sure everybody's wondering about their valuations and how that's all going to affect everything. It will affect inside millage, but House Bill 920 keeps all other voted millages at the same, so it'll reduce your millage, but the dollar values that we collect will be the same. Only inside millage will increase. The bond issue that we have on the ballot, same. We are on the ballot to collect a certain amount of money to pay for a new fire station, so regardless of number of mills that equates to, it's still the same amount of money, so it won't affect that either. The same for the school bond issue, same thing. They collect an amount of money to pay debt, so the amount of money doesn't change.
Gina, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, and this is just a tax question. So, as we've read, everybody's appraisals will be going up approximately 30%. But because we already had, I think in July or June, we already had put in a request, right? That was based on the old levels. The new levels aren't affected.
Right, it was based on the assessed value at that time.
Yes.
So you certify and calculate that
Okay.
to place it on the ballot.
Okay.
The millage may change. For a bond issue, it's the average millage over the life of the bond. So we're still going to collect a dollar amount to pay the debt every year, same dollar amount.
Yes.
That won't change.
Okay.
And I know he did say the valuations will increase 30%, but because of House Bill 920, your taxes, your real estate taxes, will increase only about 5%. Because it's only inside millage that gets increased with valuations. It's like those first 10 mills, no matter who you're paying them to, the city receives 2.8 of the
Right.
inside mills, but the other, I can't do math well, 7 point.
Wait a second.
I know, not mental math, I'm really good with this kind of math. The rest of it goes to other overlapping districts, so the school district, you know,
Library.
those sorts of,
Yeah.
others receiving inside millage.
In
Those are
North-
go ahead.
In North Canton, inside millage is split between us, the county, the school district, and the library.
Any questions, comments? Jim?
It's due August 20th, that would be, so it's approved and send it over to the county.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 alternative tax budget as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of a conference with the city's attorney concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject to imminent court action as permitted by ORC 121-22C3. And can we have a roll call vote? Or can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Oh, yeah.
Tricky.
Member Wyrick?
Yes.
Member Owens?
Yes.
Member Cleister?
Yes.
Member Schroyer?
Yes.
Member Warren?
Yes.
Member Matheny?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, at this time, council is in executive session. Let the record reflect, we will be joined by the mayor, the directors of administration and finance, the deputy directors of administration and finance, the city's attorney, the city engineer, and the clerk of council.
That, obviously, the city's attorney is Wayne Boyer.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
right there. Okay. Adjourning it. Make a motion to adjourn for the executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record reflect that no action was taken. And I'll make a motion to enter into an executive session for the purpose of reviewing union negotiations as permitted by ORC 121-222 G4. Can we have a second? Roll call vote.
All right, Member Wyrick?
Yes.
Member Owens?
Yes.
Member Clayster?
Yes.
Member Stroya?
Yes.
Member Warren?
Yes.
Member Matheny?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, thank you. At this time, council is in executive session. Let the record reflect the council will be joined by the mayor, the directors of administration and finance, deputy directors of administration and finance, and the clerk of council. So.
Looks like you got a haircut.
Thank you. Late July.
I haven't seen you without a mask for so long.
I know, I forgot my mask today. I hope none of you are sick. I hope I'm not sick. I just came back from France.
I'm going to make a motion to adjourn from executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record reflect that no action was taken, and I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll take a minute. Anyone need to use the restroom or whatever? On August 19, 2024. The time is 8:26 p.m. Liam, would you please call the roll?
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Owens?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Shroya?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
7 present.
Okay, let's start off with finance and property.
I'm gonna pass this to Gina because there are a lot of them, so I don't know if you'll be as excited as earlier tonight, but.
Well, it is exciting, actually. We have budget reductions that we're proposing of $1.5 million, so I'll kind of run through the 30,000 foot level of those.
Right.
This all begins when we start the tax budget. So we close the month of July, and we get together with the department heads and we say, you asked for this, you haven't spent this, what has changed, are you still gonna do it? And if you're gonna do it, put the purchase order in. If you're not gonna do it, maybe they had money left over last year and they were able to do it at the end of last year after the budget passed, because that was October, and they finished the year and they said, oh, we have enough money like this year, we're gonna buy our computers. We have a couple departments doing that, and so they had already put it in this year's budget, and so we're taking it out of this year's because they bought it last year. So simple things like that. So some of the things I'll just run through. I know I listed them for you on here, but I want to start with revenues because we can reduce expenses, but we also want to true up our revenues. So we look at what our trends are with income tax, what are they with property tax, where our charges for services are, where our rentals are, where our leases are, all of our revenues that are coming in. How are they looking from what we originally projected? And we do true them up every other month or so, but July's the big one. July's the big one because it provides our base to start building next year's budget. Okay, it's as good as we can get it at the end of July. So if I look at revenues, two things that are really helping the general fund. The EMS revenues are up, so we are projecting about $150,000 more than our original projection, which means right now we're going to delay the $250,000 transfer that the general fund was going to subsidize EMS. So unless we need that to close out year end, because the EMS fund does pay wages, we want to make sure there's enough money in there to pay the wages and their operational budget, but we may not have to transfer $250,000 from the general fund to EMS. And another $450,000, we have a street maintenance, and so that the street maintenance fund pays the wages of the street department, the service department, and that is funded with gas excise tax, registration fees, motor vehicle license tax, those sorts of things. That one is also up a little bit, and that fund has a pretty healthy fund balance, probably in excess of what is basically needed, and we want these funds again going into next year with what they need, not in excess. So we may save $450,000 not transferring to the street fund in this year also. So there's a $700,000 savings in general. Again, I'm going to leave those on the books in case we do need them by the end of the year, but right now we're truing up our revenue projections to show that. Also in the water department, the bulk water station has really been a big hit, and as far as successful. We have a lot of people getting water from the bulk water station, and so that revenue right now is about $130,000 higher than the original projection. This is the first full year of it, so that has really been helping the water fund as well. So those are on the revenue side. On the expense side, as you know, we've had some administrative changes this year, and so we have some wages and different labor positions that have been reallocated duties. So those also change the labor allocations to what fund is paying them based on what they're doing. So in the administration department, we've had quite a few changes, and they have reallocated duties among their people as well, and so we changed their labor allocations to be charged off to what percent of time are they working in the water, related to water, what percent of time are they working to sewer, and so we charge that 10% or 5% or whatever that is off to water and sewer. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So as we reallocated those people for the rest of the year, we also had the new scheduling implementation in the fire EMS departments, and that's we've already seen that curbing overtime significantly in that department. We've had shifts in health insurance, and that happens throughout the year, probably where you work as well. People get married, people get divorced, people have children, people, their children age off their plan. So all of those changes we also true up in July for what we know will go forward through the end of the year. We delayed hiring an operations manager, so that would be second in command in the street sewer department. We budgeted that position for a full year, but we still have not hired that position. I believe we're looking now towards October 1st. We had some capital items that we talked about that came in under budget, or we were able to purchase at the end of last year, or that there is one significant one in the water department. They need to build. something to do with the Akron Canton booster station is not quite finished, so they can't add this next piece, the telemetry, I don't even know if I'm saying the word right. I don't speak water. But that piece they can't do until the project of the booster station is done. And so we're going to take that out of this year's budget. He will re-budget for it next year for those kind of projects. We also had some demolition funds earlier in the year. We added those to demo the site where the new fire station will be built. But the county land bank is out of residential money. So they are funding the demolition of Randy's Automotive, but the homes that are on that block as well, we're going to wait until 25 because we believe we can probably get at least half of those costs back from the land bank. And we also really want to wait and see what happens at the November ballot. So we're taking those monies out of this year's budget. We'll budget those for next year. We did receive a couple donations in the fire and the police, and we already talked about eliminating the transfers. So in total, our revenues, it looks like a decrease of $500,000, but again, a lot of that is transfers coming into those other funds. So that's still a savings in the general fund of $500,000. And then overall in all the funds, the budget will be reduced by $579,125.
Wow.
Now, obviously, between now and the end of the year, it will change.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will get a grant or something else will happen. And so we'll just keep it as trued up as possible, but this provides the base going into next year.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion and a second to move item 3A to the council agenda?
Story moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Stephanie.
All right, 3B. Ben will notify council and the public of any contract updates. No motion required.
Okay.
Am I going or are you going?
Oh, you were gonna go.
Oh, okay. So the city has an outside IT technology contractor at Net Plus. Their contract was up for renewal while you are on summer break. They offered us renewal terms of a 0% increase for the next 2 years. And so we took that offer.
And they've been with us now
Oh, yeah.
for, how many years have they been with us? 6 years?
This will be 6 and 7.
Yeah.
And they provide
And you
great
can
service.
please.
And we're happy.
Yeah,
You do a great job.
very happy. Okay, that's good.
All right. Moving on. Okay. Community and Economic Development and 4A. So that's the Wise Avenue annexation. Who wants to talk about that? It's whoever. Doesn't matter. Go for it.
Yeah, I can take this. Okay, so we had the Wise annexation, establishing the zoning and the ward designations. They sent it to Planning Commission. Planning Commission adopted it as submitted, or recommended that it be adopted as submitted. Nobody disagreed with the zoning designations, and the ward follows the traditional boundaries. I got a call from the County Board of Elections, and he just wanted to verify that as well. And he said that follows the historic boundaries, so they didn't have any disagreements either. So that's just another layer of confirmation that it's true and correct.
Makes sense. We just need to set the public hearing, so any comments, questions? I'm going to make a motion to set the public hearing on ordinance 57-2024 for September 23rd at 6:45 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I'll make a motion to postpone further consideration of ordinance 57-2024 until after the September 23rd public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so moving on to 4B. This is adding hotels into the Main Street Center district. Liam, if you want to give an overview of that.
Ben, you want to defer?
I'll take this one.
Or Ben, okay. Sure.
I want to start by answering a question very bluntly that I have been asked by several of you. There is no person who has approached us that wants to build a hotel.
We wish.
We wish. how this came about is we took a tour, the administrative staff of Diebold Nixdorf's new facility. And as some of you may or may not know, their world training headquarters is in that facility. So they are constantly flying people in from around the world to come to Little North Canton and be taught how to fix ATMs. And what they said to us was, you know, we're paying to put people up in Jackson Township and bus them over here every day and bus them back every night. It'd be wonderful if we had a nice hotel here in North Canton. But we as a city have historically prohibited hotels, given our experience with one that exists in town. As an added layer to this, you all enacted the, what's it called? Transient lodging tax that started this past year. And we were very pleasantly surprised with the amount of revenue brought in by the single hotel currently within city limits. And so there's sort of two economic drivers to why we're asking you all to consider this. Is A, demand appears to be there, not only in Diebold and their training, but Walsh hosts tournaments, and this weekend was move-in weekend. I'm willing to bet lots of parents stayed in Jackson Township and drove all the way through our city to get to Walsh. And then if the school's dream of a high school athletic complex hosting tournaments and things like that comes to being, that'll be another big driver of demand for hotel stays. Now, we are asking to still keep them very limited, so only in downtown, close to where the high demand is, A, and then B as a conditional use, so that there has to be some higher level of scrutiny if one is proposed.
Maybe this might be a good use for the former Hoover Company. Maybe it might spur them to,
That could be a law.
not the whole
All
thing.
cross our fingers and.
Yes, don't hold our breath. Okay.
Okay, any comments, questions? I think it's a great idea. I mean, I'm very much for that. It would be great. So I'll make a motion to recommend item 4B to the planning commission for further consideration.
You know, one quick, this is just for Main Street, correct? The
Main Street Center.
This would only be Main Street Center,
The Main Street Center District.
All right,
as currently written.
because I think there's other places throughout town we could, you know, I think land is a problem where we're gonna build at Main Street Station, other than the obvious, but I think, could we open this up to the whole city? I think would be the better thing to do. You have that land over by Roses, there's that land there, you've got, you know, you've got this, I could see a hotel being built on that shared joint with Jackson Township, but we have that.
Well, so in general business districts, hotels are currently, it's only along Main Street that they're currently prohibited.
Okay. So they would be, we could be allowed to put one up down by the vacant land at Roses?
That's
That's-
general
that's-
business.
That's still on Main Street,
That's
but
Main Street.
Oh,
But
okay.
the
we're
Jackson
saying
Township
Yeah,
joint
Whipple.
shared
Yeah.
economic
That's
area,
possible.
That would be
that
allowed.
a hotel would be permitted.
That'd be ideal there.
Mm-hmm,
really ideal.
for
Okay.
sure.
All right.
That's what you need clarified.
You need a second?
I do.
Second?
All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then I will also make a motion to postpone further consideration of item 4B until the planning commission's recommendation is received.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to 4C. Okay, this is the double lane drive-throughs. So currently it's prohibited in most places, but this would amend that. So Ben or Liam, if you want to discuss that.
You guys want to take it?
Catherine?
Now,
Go ahead,
as we've discussed, the double lane drive-throughs, are popular. That's kind of the way that fast food's going, because so many people want it. And it helps really with the traffic not backing up into the street. We currently already have it in the McDonald's, because it was sort of grandfathered into that, right? But the way it is now is it's prohibited, but we had Chick-fil-A, 7 Brew. We know Dairy Queen is also interested in a double drive-through lane. We just think it's kind of the way of the future. Most fast foods are going to that. And especially in, that area, very, is it called auto-centric? Is that what it's called? Where a lot of cars, a lot of cars, a lot of people. So.
Yeah. What's interesting is, so I wasn't able to attend the planning commission meeting, but I watched it on live stream. And I guess I never really thought of the McDonald's as being a true double drive-through, because you start in, I don't go to McDonald's that frequently, but I guess you start in one lane, you branch off into 2 to go to the 2 windows, and then you go back into 1. I look at like the Chick-fil-A out by the mall. That to me is like a double lane, because it like literally wraps around twice, or Raising Cane's. But I will say the efficiency of those, and then seeing how many cars are in, like just say Chick-fil-A, and yeah, it really would help to keep cars off of the street when you are wrapping that many cars around a building.
So
So
if you watched the planning meeting, like you said you did, you heard the Chick-fil-A representative
Yes.
explain how that works, and how they can service a lot more
Yeah.
customers.
So I think this is a great move, and it's like it was said, these drive-throughs are changing with the times, and I say we change just to keep up with those times. I don't think there's any negative to it.
I don't see any negative to it. I think it's smart.
Yeah.
Okay, I will make a motion to recommend item 4C to the Planning Commission for further consideration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and I'll make a motion to postpone further consideration of item 4C until the Planning Commission's recommendation is received.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and then moving on to 4D. This is part of the Jackson Development Agreement. I believe it's 6 parcels and 2.7 acres, if I can get this to open. But if someone wants to take the lead on that.
This is the next piece of property in the Jackson Economic Development Agreement area that we'll annex. We call it the Dover Capital property because that's who we bought it from as a package, was a company called Dover Capital. And this ordinance just is you all giving permission to annex it.
All right. Any comments, questions? Okay. I will make a motion to recommend item 4D. No, I'll move to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to ordinance and rules. John, 5A.
5A, it's an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 1739, violations and abatement of codified ordinances of the city of North Canton to exceed or to extend the minimum time allowed for property owners to remedy hazardous trees from 2 days to 30 days, and to remove fees for submitting corrective action plans. So I think, anything to add to that, Leo?
Ben's kind of our big nuisance guy, so.
It's not here No, I was talking about the one who said he was coming to speak on this.
I mean, it's pretty evident.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously an issue, and one of the biggest things, we've all talked about when the tragedy happened on Everhard Road, when that tree fell on a car and killed a young, I think 18 or 19-year-old girl. We all said we never want that to happen. That's in any way we can prevent this. So, we did pass an ordinance to say that for dead, diseased, or dying trees, a code enforcement officer can say that the timeframe we had sent was 2 days. We're saying that to increase that to 30 days, to give a little more time. We will obviously, they have to have, we're not arborists and our code enforcement officers are not as well. So when they do go out, they do say that they're going to have a professional arborist come out and determine if the tree is dead, diseased, or dying, and then remedy what they need to do. And it's costly, we know, but with the situation we had recently, I shared the picture. It was, once it was cut down, the tree was completely hollow. It was absolutely, I think we prevented something. We'd already had a major branch fall off and land on someone's roof, and that's what started this all. The entire tree needed to come down, and it did. So this is just moving this up to 30 days to give a little more time for that.
Sometimes residents just need that time to get contractors lined up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to get somebody in and say, well, what's it gonna cost, and get at least a couple of estimates. And I don't know that, does our website for contractors, does it list, tree removal or anything like that? So residents would have a place to go look for recommendations?
They're not required to register. If they choose to register, they'd be on there, but they're not required to register.
I just wonder if the nuisance guy goes out and says, here's 2 or 3
He
that
does, he
Yeah.
gives a list of 3.
Yeah, we usually say, here's some that we use, but of course, it's up to them, they can use whoever.
Right.
And then I will say that they have always said, if you were working on it, and you have shown that I've called X company, but X company says we're backed up, and we're gonna need a few more, weeks, they've always been, willing to work with that.
That's the second part of this ordinance about the corrective action plans. So we have in the ordinance that basically you can say, I'm working on it, here's my timeline, but we currently charge $150 to submit that and get your fees put on hold. So the proposal here is to make it free.
Remove that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think it offers relief. One, you get some preparation to pay for your $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 bill that you're gonna get. 2, you waive that fee and increase the fees. I think that's very community friendly. I like this a lot.
And I will also add to that, as the clerk of the Property Maintenance Review Board, the city is very willing to mediate and go to things without taking it to appeals and going through that whole process. So removing that fee just makes it a little easier for the property owners. Especially when they already have to file a $150 application fee that we end up refunding. And just for 2024 as an example, we have had 8 appeals, only 1 of which was going to go to the board, and they have since withdrawn their appeal. We had 1 go, so yeah, out of 8, 1 actually went before the board. And they ended up realizing, that they needed to withdraw as well.
Well, it's certainly a safety issue, and it's important that they get addressed, and it's important that the officers go around and identify those, but I think allowing them enough time to get it remedied is the best course.
Yes.
2 is really almost unrealistic.
Right.
You can't, no one's coming.
You're lucky to get a quote
Yeah.
within 2
Right,
days.
yeah.
Motion.
So make a motion to move this to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, John, 5B.
Discussion on the potential to alter the city's contracting and purchasing processes. So, can I get that?
What side of that room, take it?
So if you'll all cast your minds back to long ago, before you left on summer break, I talked to many of you about you wanted some changes to make city government more transparent. And back then, I had made a list with several of you of, okay, these are all the things we're gonna touch on. And so this is sort of phase 1 of those changes that you all asked us to come up with ideas for. So part 1 is purchasing and contracting. So to set the baseline, what is currently local law regarding purchasing and contracting in our charter is that if it's above the state bidding threshold, which is currently $75,000, then council budgets for it. Administrative staff puts out a bid, we get the bid back, we open it, grade it, then we go to Board of Control and say, we have graded, we feel this is lowest and best, do you agree, Board of Control? Board of Control says yes, we go buy the thing from the lowest and best bidder. So anything below that $75,000, there is currently no local mandate to get multiple quotes or get multiple bids or seek out the lowest and best. It could just be whoever we called first, regardless of whether or not we checked another price. So there are two potential things that we want to talk to you all about tonight. Part one addresses that what happens if it's below the state bidding threshold. And then part two addresses who is the board of control that is deciding if this is the lowest and best bidder. So I'm going to start with part one about what happens if it's below that $75,000. I tasked Liam to research, and he did a dutiful job looking at other cities of what types of rules do they have. And we found one common thread, which was that almost every city we looked at had two thresholds. So threshold one was some sort of you have to go get multiple quotes threshold. You don't have to formally bid it, but you do have to at least call more than one person and see if you can get a better price. And then threshold two was their bidding threshold. Many communities like us just used the state threshold. Some had lower thresholds. Some had terrifyingly low thresholds. But that was generally what happened. So we talked to department heads about, okay, if we were to set this quoting threshold, what is a reasonable amount that it's not going to become, an absolute pain on your life to call 3 people for every single little thing. And where we ultimately fell was back to the old state bidding threshold. So in October of last year, the state bidding threshold jumped up $25,000. So from 50 to 75. And then in October of every year after this, it increases by another 3% or something like that. So what we have drafted for your consideration is that we set our first threshold at that $50,000 mark. So if it's $50,000 or more, either in straight purchase or the total contract value. So I want to buy something for the next 5 years, it might be $10,000 each year, but that total value is still 50 grand. We, administrative professional staff, have to go get 3 quotes at a minimum. If it's over the bidding threshold, then we have to follow state bidding rules about an RFP or an RFQ or a bid. Questions on part
How do you
one?
feel about that?
Well, do we have a preferred, like a lot of companies and cities probably have a preferred vendor list? Do we have such?
Loosely, our operational managers and superintendents do have their preferred vendors. They've worked here a long time. They know sort of who they can count on. It's not a formal list, but no, they do know who's familiar with a building or familiar with our city and that has been a good vendor for them in the past.
If it's above the bidding threshold and we have to bid, we're not allowed to have the
Right.
quote-unquote preferred vendor
Right.
for a bid.
Above the ORC 75,000.
So on this 3 vendors and or suppliers or contractors, whatever it is that you're looking at, is there always consideration given to businesses inside City of North Canton?
That sort of was an old school. When I started here, they were just almost like, you can't look outside North Canton. I don't care if this one's 3 times higher, they're in North Canton. And I was like, does that make sense? Is this good business sense? And I did find it was hard. It ruffled feathers of local. We had some local businesses that just knew they always got North Canton's business. And we changed that. We said, we're gonna look and see if they're quality and less money. We have to be efficient stewards of taxpayer dollars.
Absolutely.
And
But are you making phone calls to within the city? And every time you're gonna be, I gotta get 3, should I at least look at 1 in the North Canton area?
Good.
Should we be giving back business to businesses in our community? If they don't qualify, if they're not the best, if they're not the lowest, at least you've made an effort within the community.
you're saying can't hurt to look, right?
And to that point, there is a provision in here that, again, we found that many other cities have, that there is a local vendor preference provision. So council
If you would
of
like
that jurisdiction sets every time you evaluate a quote or bid, If it's from inside our city, consider it as if it were reduced by X percentage. So yes, they may be higher, but because they're local and we therefore get income tax and economic generation, we're willing to pay slightly more, is essentially. So we have proposed for you here, I think it's 10%, what made the final draft is 10% in the city, 5% in the county. Outside the county, we don't really care.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
We need to make a motion on this, or?
That's just the first part. You're not done yet, right?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
that is a self-contained thing. If you guys want to move it forward, then I think all we would need tonight is a voice vote to tell us to draft something for next committee for you to actually take a more formal vote on.
And have more defined parameters for you.
Yeah.
When you do that, can you also look at, would there be any sort of advantage given to members of our local chamber of commerce as well, who may not be within the city or within the county, but is that a third tier? Just to look at.
You're saying if they have joined the North Canton Chamber?
Yeah,
I
well, most
mean-
of them are in the county, so.
Yeah, most of them are.
County, they might get the 5%.
Sure.
So, okay, when we do the draft on this, you know, I'll just wait till we see the draft. I like
I mean, you have a
the,
draft of the chapter
Right.
in your
Yeah.
packet,
Right.
we
I-
just didn't write an ordinance. yet.
but that's what I mean. So I mean, I like the $50,000 threshold. I think that's the right number.
I like the 3 people.
I do like the 3 vendors. I don't like the talk of getting rid of the Board of Control.
Well, so that's part 2.
Yeah, that's, so, if, yeah,
How
do
many
you want to talk about that now or wait till?
How many
Second
contracts
part.
do you think fall in that under 50 over 10 annually?
Hard to say.
I don't know. But if it's,
Fair.
A fair,
If it's
a good
one-
amount, not a small number, not an extreme high
yeah,
number.
then
You're
it's
talking all
worth
operational areas.
keeping something that's
Right.
solidified in the charter.
Just curious, the
Yeah.
number, the quantity involved in
Yeah.
that.
Do you want to talk about part 2 of that? or- Okay.
So, when I talked about how our current procurement process works, and I said it goes to the Board of Control, and the Board of Control agrees, yes, this is lowest and best, you may go buy it. Well, Board of Control is the same people who just graded those bids, and Board of Control is also the people most likely to have a conflict of interest in awarding that bid. And so, again, we looked at what do other cities do? And there's really 2 that we found most common. It's either you have a Board of Control, similar to what we have, that's comprised of some group of public officials, or City Council acts as your Board of Control. There are also some cities that make you do both. And so in looking at this, for us, Board of Control is the 3 directors and the mayor. And it is a public body and we do post public meeting notices, but the meetings are always at like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. And the last time we had a member of the public show up was years ago. So it is a public process, but it's also a secret process. And not in that we're trying to make it secret, but just that nobody's paying attention, right?
Well, and what faction of people are available at 10 a.m. on a business day?
And so what we have proposed for you is essentially to replace Board of Control with yourselves. You have a much larger audience than Board of Control does to get out to the public what contracts have been awarded, what have been bid. I mean, just for example, we very recently did East Maple, and I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing, but I'm willing to bet all 7 of you couldn't even tell me how many people bid for that project, right? So by putting it in front of you, we force that information in front of you. And we force it out of just the bureaucrats' hands and into elected officials' hands.
So again, I ask, how many are we talking there? Because if you get 7 or 8 bids, 250 times, that's a lot of reading to go through for 7 council members. Is it gonna be a resolution? Are we gonna have to introduce it and vote on it 3 times? Is that gonna delay the contract? Help me understand the process.
I was gonna ask,
So-
if it's gonna be a resolution.
So as written, it would be a voice vote, and it would follow the same process Board of Control follows now. So professional staff would get open and score bids, and then Board of Control gets the score ranking that this person was rated lowest and best. That's what you got. We would give you, here's everybody that bid, here's what they bid, here's the lowest and best, here's why they're lowest and best. It's about, with the current bidding threshold of 75,000, it's about 10 a year.
Yeah, less than a dozen. So the East Maple project, for example, you'll get a bid tabulation sheet. It'll say who the contractor was and what the bid amount was.
So for,
And then a narrative on all bidders?
so for straight bids, you probably won't have a narrative, unless for some reason we want to throw out the lowest bidder, because they are unqualified for some reason. For an RFP or an RFQ, yeah, you're gonna get more of a narrative about this is why this person scored highest. But in a straight bid where it's purely just who had the lowest price, it's probably just gonna be, here are the 5 bidders, John had the lowest price. Do you all agree that John had the lowest price?
And at this point, it would have been reviewed, so going back to like the East Maple project, it's been reviewed by the engineer, Rob Graham. And, I mean, there's bid specs, it's book this thick, but that's not what we're expecting you to go through. That's what Rob goes through, to determine the best. You'll see the lowest, and the only way would be if it wasn't both lowest and best. would
So
be
is the
what
head
Rob
of each department going to be here when they have a contract to be approved? To explain or answer questions? I'm just,
I
again,
mean-
we're having a discussion, I'm just
Well,
trying to
if
get.
it's only 10 times, why wouldn't they
They
be?
could.
Yeah.
They can come.
The function of a Board of Control is not to evaluate the bids itself, but to make sure that the people who did evaluate did not biasedly pretend that number 1 never submitted and be like, oh, but my friend owns number 2, so I'm gonna pick number 2 instead.
So why would we not do both? I mean, why would we not have council, why would you not bring it before council and keep the Board of Control? I mean, we're talking about a secretive process, but if we incorporate both of those, I can't imagine anything being more transparent than that. Where you bring it before council to evaluate, and then it goes to the Board of Control to sign off on. I mean, that's 2 layers of views on a contract. Regardless, I mean, we just heard people say, like, you're gonna bring it before council, but you don't expect us to read the bid.
But she's saying that they're the people that already evaluated it.
I get
We're putting
that.
the tabulation together.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
bringing it to you, and then you're saying you're gonna give it back to us to approve again?
We've already
Is,
done it.
yes,
We're already
yeah,
done it.
because is the chart,
They
on the
already did
charter,
it.
the Board of Control does that.
Right, but was
So,
it,
and then to remove this, we would have to put it on, to be voted on by the public to remove it, when in the last 2 charter review sessions, this wasn't even on the radar. Actually, it was brought up and then denied. There were no interest in doing that. So why would we be putting that back?
but to
I
be fair, I
just-
would say the public didn't know. Like, you don't understand that process. I don't think we were even clear with that.
From an auditor's perspective, they would much rather have council's approval of a contract.
But why not both? I mean, then auditor's not gonna say, oh my gosh, he did both. Like, that's terrible. It's duplicative.
Both.
But it's right. I
It is
mean,
duplicative.
but that's a good thing. We have contracts in the past that were not followed in the Board of Control. We know this.
But don't you feel like, so they're looking at it, going like this, and they hand it to us, and then they truly are just like stamping it, like, all right, they said it, done.
Yeah, that's great. Then you look at it twice.
But the law director's part of the Board of Control, right? So
Yes.
then, we're bringing someone in and paying them to,
You have, to me, you have the mayoral, the administrative, the financial, and the law write-off by going through the Board of Control. You have those 4 layers. I think that's very important, regardless of if it's duplicative or not. It's signed, it's set in there, and it's a public meeting to do that. I think you can't get more transparent than incorporating all of that. That's frankly what I would like to see. I think that's a good vision. I think that's very open and transparent to incorporate all of it.
But that would be the reason, like Gina, you said, we're the people who are giving it to you, but it's not really the law director giving it to us, right? So I think that's the piece, the extra piece of Board of Control. Is that
I mean, we have
true?
a separate ordinance that requires the law director to review and sign all contracts before the mayor signs them, which is a separate process from this Board of Control. I mean, look, in full honesty, you could keep Board of Control and it can keep meeting at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays in addition to council, and it's really.
I mean, why
Not
would we
gonna
not?
cost
Is
us
it delay anything? It's a, what, 5-10 minute meeting to have all of you being at one last chance to look at a contract to all agree on those 4 levels? I think that's very important. What if we change something and then it goes back and it's different from what it was presented and then finishes as?
I mean,
But then we would have been that
should
change.
not happen.
Right, well, yeah, but it could happen. It's coming before council, right?
Not from-
Council's changed some things in the past. So, I don't know. That's my opinion on it. I don't know what you guys think, but it's
you're
in the
not
charter
opposed
for a
to
reason.
Bringing it to council. That's really the step we want to
He's
have.
just saying you don't want the council to award. You want the Board of Control to still award. But you're open to council.
No,
review.
I'm
I think
saying
we'd
we
almost
can,
award and you
we
would
can,
just
we
stamp
can
it.
award and then you stamp off on it, you sign off on it. It goes back to you for approval after we approve it.
It's 2 check marks.
It's, yeah, literally, it's like having checks and balances all over the place. I think that's
It's
really
actually not a
important.
bad idea.
Why
We actually
would you
do
not?
get
I mean,
paid.
we have a history in the further past where we've missed contracts. They've not been to Board of Approval, and they've been approved. Would this not resolve that issue? And you know,
I think we would reverse the steps, though. I think Board of Control would meet first to make sure the contract.
I would be,
is
yeah,
in
that would be
order
okay, and then
before
discuss, that would be great.
Mhm.
That's even better. I like that even better.
The step we're really trying to get to is that all the contracts get in front of
Yeah.
the separate.
I
Yeah.
think that's huge. I think that's
Yeah.
very important. And I like the language that you guys put on that. I like the threshold.
Mhm.
I just don't like the idea of abandoning something that was in the charter for a reason, which, to me, we've created a very transparent process by combining those 2 things.
It does, though, seem backwards, that they're rating it, and then they're signing off on it. So whether or not the charter thought that, I do think there is some wiggle room in that, that's not what the
Could
intent
be.
was.
Yeah.
You would
that's-
never have the people that are actually rating it, they could all be biased, and then voting on it? I mean, that seems corrupt to me. Like, that seems like back in the day, you could have someone being like, I want you to do this.
But if it's both ways, then we both have checks and balances on each
Mhm.
other.
We would have also had a checks and balance if they just rated them, and then it ended here.
Either way, I mean, yeah.
So I think the charter was, I'm not sure if the intent was exactly as it was spelled out in that way. There's another system where you have that. You know, you don't rate, and then you also get to choose.
Let's create it.
It was created, that's how it was.
It
That's
came
how it's
before,
been.
came before council and then, so what?
No, it
changed
never,
at
no,
that
I'm
point?
saying it never has. It was
Oh,
only, the
yeah.
system was only them. So you only
Right.
had them, but it was, I don't think the intent was ever for them to truly, we're gonna pick, and now we're gonna vote. Okay,
Yeah.
got what we wanted. You know, I
Right.
just don't think
Yeah.
that was the intent of the charter, but.
Right.
All right, so you got the approval, you can come to us, and then if you still have to have your 5-minute meeting 10 times a year.
Well, for next committee, we'll have something else then that incorporates.
Now, would we have to change the charter still?
No, because
Based
it's
on
so-
how based on how it's
Order.
been described tonight, in my mind, we could just add into this 163 chapter that it must also come back. Basically you pass a local law
Okay.
requiring it come to you.
Okay. I like that.
All right,
That was it, 50,000? or 75?
Anything over,
50.
That's anything over 75.
right, that has to be
The Board of
formally
Control's over
bid.
75.
Okay.
The 50 was the 3 quotes.
All right.
Just one question. Will that go before, for them to review our proposal in the Board of Control? Does that only have to be done at a council meeting? It cannot be voted on at a committee of the whole, correct? So that, I just want to make that clear. Be presented at a council meeting for you to review.
Probably under the for consideration.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, I mean, now's the time to write it the way we want it, so is that the best way? For consideration or under new business, or, I mean,
And then we're just doing a voice vote, then I would say
Yeah.
it's something for your consideration,
Okay,
not
yeah.
legislation.
that makes sense. Yep, you guys agree with that?
That's right.
Okay.
I think, that, again, the move was for more transparency.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's something we've been working on for about the last 5 years. So making government more transparent for you all, but for our citizens too.
Okay.
We will have more next committees beyond this.
All right, so moving on to Parks and Recreation. Christina?
All right, so we are looking to put out an RFP for management of Arrowhead. Our current contract with NCG is up, I believe, end of January. Is that right? So we're just kind of doing our due diligence, want to put out a request for proposals, make sure that we select the best company to run the golf course. You guys, Catherine, do you have?
And pool and banquet facility and.
Well, yes, sorry.
Our restaurant
Whole
with a
thing, yes.
golf course wrapped around it.
Yes.
So this is similar to what we did 5 years ago. We put an RFP out, we got one local and several that were from out of state, and we had a selection committee, and we had a matrix, and we had qualifications based on the RFP of what we were looking for, and then we rated them. So we will be doing that again to make sure that we have the best operator for this asset.
Anyone have questions or anything?
I'll make it just a quick comment that I think the current management is doing a great job. And the grounds are fantastic. They're very well taken care of, which is to the city's credit as well. So.
And as you know, there was a lot of cleanup when they started.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, there was a lot of past neglect, yeah.
It was a mess.
Yep,
And we had folks
absolutely.
for year 2 and COVID.
Yep.
And year 3 was post-COVID.
Yeah.
So there was,
It looks good.
a few hurdles to get through, and we do get a lot of positive feedback from, like you said, how it looks, how events have, been. That's how we wanted it. We wanted to have something we were proud of, and we weren't proud of it 5 years ago.
Cool.
All right, so I'll make a motion to move item 6A to the council agenda.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I'm going to turn the next one over to Stephanie and recuse myself for that discussion.
Okay.
You can make coffee in there.
Yeah, and breakfast.
Christina, when you come back in, will you grab me a glass of water, please? Thank you. Okay, so we, kind of just like we're doing for an RFP for Arrowhead and different things, we really are taking a look at a lot of different city areas and getting requests for proposals. So one we're looking at is a request for event rentals at the North Canton Civic Center. Seem to be in an emergency. One of the things that has been really successful here is the senior programming, and we are doing that in collaboration with the library. So if you've looked at some of their programmings, and they do an amazing job of co-branding that with the city, and the numbers that they get. And Mayor, I know that you kind of ran on a platform a little bit of having senior programming. And when we look at our population, it's really important, I think, to our community. And so I don't know if some of those kind of activities would be included in that, would that organization be in charge of that. But we have this amazing building here, and it's very hard for our own team to come over and manage a wedding and have the photographer and the caterer and everybody need things. And so we really feel like somebody could manage this on our behalf and have us make some money from it. Any other thoughts?
Well, we don't currently do wedding.
Right, but we could.
Well, we didn't do weddings because of alcohol.
Well, we can do that too. That's what would be in the RFP is the management agreement, the company or the person that would be the selected event management person, they would handle all of
They would have a
that. So you would
license.
sign a contract with them, they'd have to handle getting the permit, and they'd be purchasing the alcohol, and you'd be purchasing it through them for the event.
Similar to what we do at Arrowhead.
Yes.
Yes, and so there's an opportunity for revenue here.
Yeah.
Weddings are
Yeah,
good
and
revenue.
showers, and just
um,
events.
It's just, it was too much on our administration
It was.
staff. You know, they have a lot of other responsibilities, and managing all that goes into large weddings
Right.
was a lot, so we ended up just cutting it. And now we're saying bring it back, but don't put it on our staff.
Right.
Be in an agreement for professionals to manage it, and then, you know, we'll see an increase on the revenue. And it'll be, hopefully the increase in the revenue definitely will offset the
Well,
cost.
and you really see that a lot these days. I mean, you see it with the 720 market, you see it with what they do at the Jackson Amphitheater, what they're doing at the Oakwood Amphitheater. It's not like you're calling Grant Giltz to see who's going to be at the band and he's collecting ticket money. That's all subbed out. And they're very, 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 very profitable when they're doing that. So we have a great facility here, and I think it's really smart to start thinking how we can utilize that again.
To your question about the senior programming, in the draft RFP in your packets, there is language that whoever the bidder is would be expected to have accommodations for senior programming, farmers market, and us here every Monday night.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. Two really important programs that we take
And
part
then
in.
another really key thing of having an event management, personnel is, it was kind of crazy to think in the past, we just sort of said, here's the keys, have a nice party. And then, one of the things we worried about was damage. But nobody was here. So we would like them to be more present.
Yeah.
More here at the beginning, maybe at the end. They will hire and take care of the security, and that'll all be reflected in the rental cost.
Right.
For that. And
Well, you think about how people these days, I mean, they hire out a whole person to do their wedding, right? And so this would just be another person. In Monticello and our homeowners, you don't get to use that facility without hiring the attendant. And they're there at the beginning and the end, and there's a checklist, and you pay for that, and you put down a deposit, a pretty significant deposit. So that's our small little allotment, so.
I like the idea that it's contracted out and that we could control that as well. Like we can see what, through our system.
Yeah.
But so I had my reception there, and it was a lot on the staff. You come to view it, and then they let you in to decorate, and then they let you in afterwards, and then the police come.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. That's 4 touches to every one time it's rented out. That's a lot of hours for our staff.
And I'll tell you,
So,
it's a question I get asked a lot. Like, when are you gonna rent that out? Why are you guys not utilizing this? Why does it look empty all the time? Why is it dark?
we get
So,
calls
all the time.
frequently because they came to weddings here in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe thought, I want to have my wedding there. And then we're saying, we don't do that anymore, we don't do that anymore.
Right. And truly, it was because of the time. It wasn't that people were destructive, really, or, I mean, maybe you had one issue in a number, but really, it was the time it was taking on you. So, okay, if there are no other
I'm glad-
questions.
well, one thing I want to touch on real quick. I'm glad that the exemptions for the retirement communities there, the senior programming, because the chamber and the library and the Y to some point, they are, when we talk about parks and recreation, they are our recreation partners and all that other stuff. So whatever we need to do to continue, like the card room and all that stuff, to be open for any new programs that would come up too would be nice. Especially on, like days that it's not gonna be rented, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday on that. I'd really like to keep that open for our community if that's possible. or, something to that effect.
Will these proposals come back to us at a council meeting and for us to vote on, or will you all in the administration select the best one and move forward?
So that's sort of the thing we just talked about.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
I mean, I would assume they're gonna come back, depends on how quickly assuming that we do pass an ordinance, that ordinance, calendar-wise, is going to pass before this RFP is.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right, so I motion item 6B to the council, I'll make a motion, move item 6B to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So carried. Thank you.
Or not to forget Stephanie's water.
Have the water.
We will not continue this meeting until your water is provided.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so moving on, where are we here?
7A.
All right, personnel and safety, all right. David, 7A.
Okay. Legislation to make some changes to chapter 135. We are looking to add the position of lieutenant to the staffing of the fire department. EMS services are in need of that.
It's on 7B.
Lieutenant's role will help staff a minimum.
We skipped
Dave,
one.
yeah,
No, your cheat sheet is in the wrong.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Keep
Never
going.
mind, continue.
Proceed.
You're good.
You're good.
Right, so currently we've got 3 ambulances that we need to staff. Kind of lost my train of thought.
No,
You're good.
you're good.
So, Ben, would you like to take over from there?
Sure.
Thank you.
So this is related to the next item, 7B, which is their union contract. The fire department was very concerned about their safety and public safety. So statistically, at the moment, we need 3 ambulances available. We only employ enough full-time staff to staff 2.5 ambulances. So we employ 5 people per shift. It takes 6 people to man 3 ambulances. So presently, we rely on part-time, but to run in an ambulance, you need to be typically a paramedic. There's some situations where you only need your basic, but we try to have paramedics when possible. Part-time paramedics are difficult to come by, because if you have your medic card, it's real easy to go get a full-time job somewhere else, so why would I keep working, odd shifts here and there for the city of North Canton? And so as part of these union negotiations, they were expressing that they really felt that they needed that 6th person per shift, that there was enough full-time staff to cover the needs of the city. So then the second follow-up question to that is obviously why is it a lieutenant and not just another rank and file member? So that goes into the safety on fire grounds. So if you are, and I'm going to explain this much worse than a firefighter, and I apologize in advance. If you're fighting a structure fire, there is an NFPA rule called 2 in, 2 out, which is if you have 2 people in the building, you need to have 2 people outside the building. And each officer is supposed to be responsible only for one set of 4 people. So you're in charge of 2 people in the building and 2 people out of the building, and that's what you're watching. Right now, we will try to staff 8 people at a time, so our 5 full-timers plus up to 3 part-timers. If you're at a structure fire, we only have 1 officer on duty. He's watching 7 other people plus himself, so 2 teams of 4. And so they expressed to us that they feel that that is unsafe to have 1 person trying to watch and protect the safety of all 8 people.
That's the span of control.
Span of control, plus whatever other
Narrow span of control.
outside departments respond to our call for mutual aid and come show up to try and help fight this fire. And so they asked to add a lieutenant's position that is sort of a lower rank supervisor that could run one of those crews on the fire grounds. Or if the captain is off, could run the station for the day while the captain's off, could run a chase vehicle with an ambulance if you need 3 people on the call instead of the typical 2 that man an ambulance. All those sorts of things that right now we rely on one captain, and if you look at our call logs about how many calls Medic 1, which is the captain's truck, responds to, you'll see they run around pretty ragged, responding to every single call every single day.
We have 1 captain on each shift, and this would add 1 lieutenant also on each shift.
I think for staffing wise, for the safety of our firefighters and EMS, and I think you'll bring it up in the next piece of legislation when it comes to the contract negotiations, what the fire department EMS was willing to adjust in those negotiations to help pay for this lieutenant position. And I think that's what states the biggest comment of all is the fact that the fire and EMS are looking for ways to remain safe while on duty. I think we need to support that.
Do you want to make a motion?
Absolutely.
There.
Any other comments?
No.
I will make a motion to move 7A to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 7B.
And as we move on to 7B, that is the collective bargaining that took place, that's adding the lieutenants that we can now add. So, Ben, would you like to cover the highlights of the negotiations? I know it was
Bullet point.
it was a lot to be covered. I think that the administration and their team and the negotiations did an excellent job. The communication, bridging gaps, finding solutions. I think we've got the best possible solution here in this negotiation.
I will just hit highlights real quick. First highlight is that the fire definitely came to the table as a partner, not as an enemy, and we had a good negotiation. So the highlights are switching from a 53-hour schedule to a 50-hour schedule, so 2,600 hours a year worked by on-shift firefighters. And then some flex time for the fire inspectors. Several different little things throughout the contract to control overtime, most notably an updated safety rule that says firefighters can work a maximum of 48 hours in any 72-hour period. And then, of course, the wonderful thing that everybody always wants to know is the wages. For the inspector bureau, it's 2.5% year 1, 3% years 2 and 3. For the line workers, so on shift, it is a 0% increase year 1 with 4% the next 2 years. And with switching to a 50-hour work week and some of the overtime changes, they are giving up the mandated or built-in overtime that they currently receive. And what that means is that their base take-home pay in year 1 will be lower than what their current base take-home pay is right now. And they were willing to agree to that because they asked for the staffing that we just talked about instead. That they really valued that they didn't feel safe without that staffing. Those are the highlights.
Perfect.
Any other comments? Again, thanks to the administration, hard work put into that. I'll make a motion to move item 7B to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And moving on to 8, the rubbish committee. Jamie.
No, 7C.
7C.
Oh, 7C, sorry. Skipped right over that. Sorry, David.
Yes. So this is the changes that are being proposed to the dispatch center, making it a separate department from the police, as opposed to moving to a regional center. I believe it adjusts personnel by 2 individuals in the department. I think Ben or Liam, if you're going to discuss the staffing, I personally think that we still need better coverage, and the Red Center offered that. this is the follow-up proposal to not moving to the Red Center.
Yeah, so when we last talked about dispatch, the message from council was to look at some reforms instead of joining regional, and we have been saying all throughout that process that our number one recommendation was to sort of separate it from the police department, which, as we visited other dispatch centers, is how every single one we visited operated, was its own separate entity. So this ordinance would create the dispatch center as a separate city department reporting to the administration. We sort of took a page out of Red Center's book. We borrowed the idea of their leadership committee, and we're proposing to create what we're calling the dispatch advisory committee, which would be the director of administration or their designee, the chiefs of the two emergency departments, and then the chair of council's public safety committee or whatever successor committee may exist however many years in the future. And so that's sort of the leadership of the department. Staffing, we are proposing reducing staffing from current 9 to 7. What that means is we will still staff or schedule 2 people per shift every shift. Our minimum would just be reduced to 1 on nights and afternoons. So right now, if somebody calls off on the night shift, we offer it up for overtime, no matter what. This would be, if one person calls off on night shift, we offer it up to part-time, but not for full-time overtime.
I think when we
I
last
thought
met
based on-
also, we talked about the position of the public policy analyst position that's been filled, and that was filled internally by a dispatcher. So that position has started. Today was the first day. And that's why we're saying to these going down by a couple of positions, it's through attrition. We will not backfill that position. And I believe that position's also on the advisory committee, right?
That's who we want to say is admin's designee, yeah.
So everywhere where it referred to the dispatch department reporting to the chief of police, it will now say reports to the director of administration and will be managed by administration. We've made a few other changes. We spoke with the department. And we have a lead dispatcher that is now taking calls out and working on shift. What other
And that
changes?
won't be filled either, right? So that's not gonna be backfilled, so that's another position.
It still stays lead dispatcher.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
contracted position. And there are some duties in there that the lead
Got it.
dispatcher does, but also will be taking calls as needed.
We had another dispatcher leave for the police academy.
Yeah, we had
We are
one
currently
part-
at
go down to
7
part-time.
right now, today.
We had a full-time that had been telling us all along, this person was interested in going to Apata, and we'll go down to part-time from full-time. So we won't backfill that full-time position, but we can utilize that other part-time, so we'll have 2 part-time now. So like to Ben's point, that's what we would call in for the, night shift rather than filling it with overtime, a full-time person. So we should see some reduction in overtime costs there. And then, of course, like I said, you'll see the dispatcher that's not being backfilled. That's a savings there in that position, that salary. And then also the part-time person with benefits. They would not have the benefits any longer.
Well, they don't claim it right now.
So she doesn't carry any.
I think the sort of last piece is civil service coverage. We just went to them and asked, do you still want to be civil service? And they said yes, so we are proposing to you all to keep them in civil service. Even if they weren't, it would be our intent to still test, give an aptitude test, so calling it a civil service test really is not a burden on the city.
Okay.
So with this change, we will have more oversight into the department's functions and duties and time spent, and we'll be able to, with the advisory committee meeting regularly and looking at calls and tasks and making sure that it's working as efficiently as possible and providing great safety services to the city.
still voice my concern that now there's a potential of having one dispatcher on duty in afternoons and evenings, that we're not giving the residents the coverage and the service that they had or could have had with the Red Center. And I think we're just compromising and find it is the best business decision.
Well, the calls can roll over and do roll over in a mutual aid situation, so.
Yeah, before we move this forward, I'd like to strip the emergency clause from going forward. So, if anybody wants to comment on that.
What does that do for you guys?
I mean, we had it in there to formalize it by September 1st, because in our conversations with the dispatch personnel, that's what we had told them, is this will all start September 1st. I mean,
This would push it out to what?
it is our belief that we generally have broad management rights to make most of these changes without the formal reporting changing on September 1st.
So you'll still move forward, correct? Right, you'll still keep.
With most of it. Without this ordinance, time cards will have to stay with the police department and time.
Why-
for-
why?
things like that.
Why are you suggesting that?
We're not going to have the votes to pass it, to be honest.
Oh,
Yeah. So we would need 6 votes to pass on an emergency, and if we proposed it, it would be potentially defeated.
okay, thank you.
So that's my assumption.
Assumption,
So,
yeah. You don't know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Any
to
motion?
Ben's point, I mean, there are management rights that we can still move forward with some of the
Yes.
things without, so it won't hinder anything.
Good, good. Yep. I just want to be practical. I don't want to have to restart
No.
and delay it further.
Can't
So,
wait 6 months.
No.
yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know.
Yep.
You need a motion?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to move 7C to the council agenda.
Second,
Without an emergency, for the record.
Right.
Without, yes, without,
As amended.
yeah.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Moving on to utilities and rubbish. Jamie?
All right. Well, for once, the former rubbish committee is actually going to talk about rubbish today. So item 8A, talking about the Kimball contract. So it is up for renewal. And I think the information that I got is their proposal is an increase of 94 cents per month. Is that correct?
If you have both recycling and trash.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And I guess beyond that, does anybody have anything they would like to add or discuss or share?
Just that we brought in the utilities gals that take all the calls
Mhm.
when there's issues and problems and complaints with people's trash, and they said it has diminished considerably through the years. And during the COVID time, it was rough, and there were other times, you know, and Kimball's really turned it around, and they get very few calls, and for the, you know, majority, people are very pleased with the
Right.
service that they provide us.
And I will say that, you know, I got a number of complaints. And again, I guess I have to admit, it's not been within the past year or two. It certainly was during the COVID times, beginning part of my tenure here as a council member. Is there any sort of performance guarantee with them as far as if we run into situations, and again, not that we've seen them lately, whereas they were habitually not collecting recycling, let's say? Is there any thoughts or considerations around that, or?
No performance guarantees. I mean, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about that,
Right.
especially the leaf recycling program, and they explained it to us, and it's really the calls that they get, the utilities department gets,
Mhm.
that have to keep explaining how that works. A lot of times people are like, they didn't pick it up, it's, their truck is filled, and they have to go back.
Right.
Empty.
Yeah.
And then they do come back.
Okay,
It's also, you know, they talked about how it fluctuates so much that, you know, we have just a few bags of leaves, and then that weekend where all the leaves fall off
Yes.
the tree, and then everybody's got got, 12 to 17 bags by the trucks. And they do the best, they do the best they can. Their customer service is good. When you call, if you think you've been skipped, a lot of times you haven't, they are coming back. And I think for the most part, they have been pleased, right? People have been, when they have to make that call. I don't think we have discussed any performance guarantee.
Well, with the leaf recycling, we did talk about them giving us this year the schedule of which areas are getting checked which day. Because
We just brought that up.
thing we get a lot with the leaf recycling is, they've been out for 2 weeks, and that might be because, it might just happen because your area got checked the day before all your leaves fell, and then you raked them, and then your area isn't up again until 2 weeks ago. So we did ask them to give us the schedule that the utility coordinators can have, so when people call to say, I understand it hasn't been picked up, you are scheduled for X week.
And see, that's actually a good point, and I guess maybe, and shame on me if I've missed that, I use my tractor to mow my lawn and suck up my leaves at the same time, so unfortunately, my leaves are technically considered trash, but I guess I didn't realize that it wasn't always following on your date that your trash was going out. My trash goes out Tuesday night for Wednesday pickup, so what you're saying is they weren't necessarily always picking up leaves on that same day. Is that correct?
So they have,
I guess I missed that.
I believe he said one truck that does the whole city.
Yeah.
And it works in sort of quadrants, and it's not like the normal route. They drive around looking for who has bed, right? Because it's not like trash recycling where I'm stopping at every
Yeah.
route.
It's just the brown bags.
They sort of pick areas to patrol each day. Like, go drive around this area this day and see if you find any bags. And then, we're not the only
Right.
community, so we get, I believe he said 1 or 2 days a week. And then
Wow.
the next week you get, the next
Right.
area.
Well, that definitely would be helpful to share that if they can
We do try
provide
to
that. So,
communicate a lot on the leaf recycling program every year. It's always
Yeah.
in the newsletter. We just put the social media out, but we'll continue.
right.
Does the city keep a copy or keep current on the certificate of liability insurance listing the city as additional insured? The process that keeps
They
that
have
up
to
to date?
provide that to us.
Yes.
Bonded and insured.
With the rubbish, there's 4 wards, 5 days. Do they do like Ward 1 on one day, Ward 2? I see like in Ward 4, mostly our day is Thursday. I don't know, you usually do.
I'm on Wednesday, yeah.
On Wednesday. Do they do that?
Their maps, we have a copy of their route map.
Okay.
They have absolutely no relevance to our political
Oh,
boards
no,
at all.
okay.
Yeah.
I was just.
More
I was gonna
operational.
say-
All 4 areas, all 4 wards are pretty equal, and I thought, well, maybe they could.
Well, to your point, my pickup on my street is, well, I can't even say my street because that's the second half of what I was going to say. My house gets picked up on Wednesday, but you go 100 yards down the street and they get picked up on Thursday.
Okay.
They're more like diagonal stripes across
Yeah.
the city is how I would describe it. They sort of, right turn, left turn, right turn, left turn that
Yep,
way.
they probably have a
up the
computer that
neighborhood.
figures it all out
Is
for them.
that something that can be posted? So people, literally the number one complaint, if you combine every service that we have, fall is Kimball complaints over and over and over.
On the leaves.
Combine every complaint in the history of me being a council member, that's like 10 times the amount of complaints. I only get complaints about fall, Kimball, leaf pickup, or missed routes and all that stuff. I think next year, honestly, it needs to be open for an RFP. There are other
There are not
things.
many.
There's not, but,
No.
but I think we can probably negotiate some sort of performance guarantee or something in there, maybe a credit to someone that if they don't get the trash picked up because of lack of staffing or whatever they're gonna use, to have something that you can give back to the people. I don't see that. I don't view them as being great at customer service. I don't at
Lack
all,
of staffing was an issue for a
Yeah.
while.
It
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
But I don't hear
But
any
one leaf
complaints.
truck for our entire community with weird routes, it's just, I mean, I've watched.
That is a good point. One
I've
truck
seen-
for
I've seen-
6,000 houses.
Right, I've seen
So-
multiple, like, bags of leaves out for at least 2.5 weeks. So if they're missing one route and coming back, I don't know if they're not following their diagonal routes or something, but literally on Portage, for 3 weeks this last fall, there were 20 bags sitting across from my old house for
But did
3
anyone
weeks.
call? Was it just a
Must not have,
mess?
because
They-
before we
they
sat
call
down to this
All the
contract,
time.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
I
they called me
asked
to complain
everyone
about
for
it.
feedback and said, we're gonna be discussing it with them, and I asked the department that gets the calls, and I didn't hear, so I don't know if people didn't call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get calls.
No.
My area is really happy.
Yeah.
And from other communities, I mean, you can contract with Canton, they'd be happy to come up and,
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
that's my point. But,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a request for
but you could,
proposal is.
doesn't mean it switches though.
Right,
Right.
it doesn't, but
So you can
sometimes
just see what else
that's-
is out there.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's
Well,
good
so-
to see what other people offer sometimes.
Something to consider next year when this contract is up. I mean, at the end of the day, 94 cents a month is a
Yeah, I
very
mean,
nominal.
Yeah.
that was unbelievable. I mean,
More,
I
but
thought
you're
they
gonna
would
pay
be
more.
10%
We can look
up.
and see what's out there.
Yeah.
We can see
Yeah.
that
And
there's
that's-
more,
that could
but
be the
also there's
risk.
More cost.
Yeah.
And the
So-
one thing they did do that was very customer friendly is if you want to pay a little bit more, they'll go to your door.
Yeah.
A lot of them won't
Yes,
even
our
offer that
senior
anymore.
citizens do
Yeah.
take advantage of that, where you don't have to drag the curb to the street. They'll go and get it and take
Yeah.
it back.
Yep, that's good service.
The only other thing we heard was from smaller private developments, condo type associations, and kind of said, could they have the smaller truck come onto their private streets and come in there? And the answer to that is the smaller trucks fill up faster.
Yeah,
You have
they
to
don't
go
hold
back
as
on the
much.
other end.
Yeah.
It's more gas and time and everything, and they said, no.
Yeah.
So if they want to contract with them separately and privately and pay that, but as far as the city contract.
All
right.
Cool. Any other questions or comments? All right. So I guess you'll notify us, Ben, when the updates, or with any contract updates. We have no further action on this, so, okay. Item 8B is me as well. So, and this is taking a look at, this is the Orion project, excuse me. And this was something we had talked about before. We had gotten, this is a joint project between the city as well as Plain Township. We had gotten grants for this. So my information that I have written down here is the whole project in total between our part and Plain's part is $1.2 million. And drum roll, please, thanks to some grants that we have gotten here in the city, our part is going to be $81,840.72. So I don't know if there's anything else that,
That's our out-of-pocket.
Out of
portion.
pocket, yes.
Our portion is about double that.
Well,
but
I'm sorry, yes.
The grant pays 50%.
Thank you for correcting me. Our out-of-pocket cost is $81,840.72. Any other comments from administration? Did I
It is
leave
already
anything?
in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
The large price tag Plain is redoing pretty much the whole road. We, on Orion from Apple Grove and then on Orion from Pittsburgh, have two sort of water lines that don't quite meet in the middle, so our portion is also so low because all we're doing is meeting those two in the middle.
Yeah.
For the record, I would like it to be pronounced as Orion.
That was a slip as I'm reading. I apologize, and for anybody in my ward who might live on.
The constellation
Orion.
it's named after is
So,
called
okay.
Orion.
All right. Any other questions, comments, wisecracks? All right.
Sorry.
I will move that we put item 8B on the council agenda. Looking for a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, and now we're going to have a 20-minute presentation from, not just kidding. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.